The CIA is now arming Kurdish fighters inside Iran, and as Throne fires 86% fewer missiles, a quiet ground war may already be unfolding beyond the airstrikes. And with the Senate just clearing the political path for this war to continue, what happens next could decide whether Iran collapses or the conflict explodes into something far bigger. Something shifted in this war on day 6. It is subtle. You will not see it in the explosion footage or the casualty numbers, but if you know where to look, you can see it clearly. Iran fired 86% fewer missiles today than it did on the first day of the war. Its drone attacks dropped by 73% compared to day 1. The top American general, Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, walked up to the podium at the Pentagon and confirmed both numbers publicly. He said the U.S. will expand inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory. He said American strength is growing fiercer, smarter, and utterly dominant. And the reason Iran is firing less is not because it has decided to slow down. It is because it is running out. This is the moment in a war when things get truly dangerous, not when one side is strong, when one side is running out of options. And that is exactly when the United States Senate, by a vote of 47 to 53, rejected the War Powers Resolution that would have forced Trump to stop. One more door has closed. Every mechanism that could have ended this war through political pressure has now been tried and failed. The bombing will continue. The Senate has given this war its political seal of approval. Today, I am going to take you through the 6 most important things that happened in the last 24 hours, because something has shifted, and if you are watching this war closely, you need to understand what that shift means. Let us start with the most explosive new development, the one that transforms this from an air war into something much larger. CNN confirmed on Wednesday that the CIA is actively working to arm Kurdish fighters with the goal of sparking a popular uprising inside Iran. Multiple people familiar with the plan told CNN directly the Trump administration has been in active discussions with Iranian opposition groups and Kurdish leaders in Iraq about providing them with military support. Thousands of Kurdish fighters from multiple armed factions are operating along the Iraq-Iran border, primarily in Iraq's Kurdistan region. And according to an official from the Coalition of Political Forces of Iranian Kurdistan, speaking to the Israeli channel I-24 News, the ground offensive has already begun. Kurdish fighters affiliated with the Kurdistan Free Life Party, known as PJAK, began taking combat positions inside Iranian territory starting from the midnight of March 2nd. They have already moved into positions around the southern mountains of Marivan in Iran's Kurdistan province. This is a coalition of 5 major Iranian Kurdish political and armed factions that formed a unified alliance just days before the war started on February 22nd. They include the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan, the Kurdistan Freedom Party, PJK, the Kamala, and the Organization of Iranian Kurdistan Struggle. Together, they have thousands of trained armed fighters. They have been fighting the Iranian regime for decades, and they have been waiting for exactly this moment. What does this mean strategically? It means the United States has decided it does not need to put American boots on the ground inside Iran. It has proxies, Kurdish fighters who have been fighting the IRGC for years, who know the terrain, who have deep roots in the local population, and who are motivated by something far more personal than any foreign policy objective. Their families live under the regime they are trying to bring down. Iran's IRGC responded on Tuesday by striking Kurdish bases and camps in Iraq's Kurdistan region with dozens of drones. The IRGC is trying to destroy these groups before they can fully mobilize. But the CIA is already in motion. The weapons are moving. The fighters are taking positions. The ground war inside Iran has quietly begun, and most of the world has not noticed it yet. Now let us talk about what the 86% drop in Iranian missile fire actually means. On the first day of the war, Iran launched a massive barrage, dozens of ballistic missiles, hundreds of drones. They went after Al Udeid base in Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Israel, Jordan. 6 countries hit simultaneously. It was Iran's full show of force. Everything it had been preparing for years fired in a single coordinated wave. By day 5, that pace had dropped to 14% of what it was on day 1. The drone rate dropped to 27%. These are not rounding errors. This is a structural collapse in Iran's ability to sustain offensive operations. 2 things are happening simultaneously. First, the U.S. and Israel have been destroying launch sites, missile storage facilities, and drone bases from the first day. Every airstrike on a missile launch position is not just destroying one missile, it is destroying the infrastructure to launch dozens. Second, Iran built up its stockpile over years, buying time, hiding weapons, dispersing storage. But a stockpile has a finite size. Fire it all in a week, and the stockpile is gone. The Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, stood at the Pentagon and said the Iranian Air Force is no more. He said the Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. He said Iran's capabilities are evaporating by the hour. These are press conference claims, and they carry the obvious bias of a man defending his own operation. But the 86% drop in missile fire is a concrete number, and it tells a story that the press conference claims cannot. Gulf air defense systems have been absorbing enormous pressure. Analysts warned just days ago that the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar might run out of interceptor missiles within 1 to 2 weeks if Iran kept up its initial pace. But if Iran's launch rate has dropped by 86%, the pressure on Gulf air defenses has dropped with it. The Gulf's ammunition problem may resolve itself before their interceptors run out. Not because the threat disappeared, but because Iran used most of its long-range arsenal in the opening days and cannot sustain that volume anymore. In the Indian Ocean off the coast of Sri Lanka, something happened that had not happened since the Second World War. A U.S. Navy submarine used a torpedo to sink an Iranian warship. Sri Lanka's deputy foreign minister confirmed that at least 80 people were killed when the vessel went down. The White House confirmed the strike, calling the torpedo by the name Quiet Death. Defense Secretary Hegseth described it as the first sinking of an enemy warship by torpedo since World War II. Think about that sentence. Since World War II, that is 80 years of modern warfare. Korea, Vietnam, the Fallens, the Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria. In all of that, no American submarine ever sank an enemy ship with a torpedo until now. The Iranian warship had apparently traveled to international waters near Sri Lanka, possibly to avoid the U.S. naval operations in the Persian Gulf. It found no safety there. The submarine followed it. The torpedo found it. 80 people went into the Indian Ocean. The White House also announced that the U.S. has destroyed more than 20 Iranian ships in total, including Iran's top submarine. Iran's Navy, which just a week ago was threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz and firing on commercial vessels, has essentially ceased to exist as a functioning force. The Senate vote on Wednesday deserves its own attention because of what it reveals about the domestic politics of this war. A group of Democratic senators led by Senator Tim Kye of Virginia, along with Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, forced a vote on a war powers resolution. Under the Constitution, only Congress can formally declare war. The War Powers Resolution passed in 1973 requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of deploying forces and limits operations to 60 days without congressional authorization. Democrats argued Trump violated this by launching a massive war against a sovereign nation without any vote in Congress. The resolution failed 47 to 53. Every Republican except Rand Paul voted against it. And Senator John Fetterman, a Democrat from Pennsylvania, broke with his party and voted against it too. The consequences of this vote are significant. The legal challenge to Trump's war authority has been tested and defeated in the Senate. A similar vote is expected in the House on Thursday. And House Speaker Mike Johnson said he believes Republicans have the votes to defeat it there too. After both chambers vote this war down, Trump will have effectively received retroactive political endorsement from Congress for an operation he launched entirely on his own authority. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut walked out of a classified briefing with Trump administration officials and told reporters they told us in there that this is an open-ended operation that has not even really started in earnest yet. He said more Americans will be killed. He said ground troops are not off the table. Senator Cy Booker said there clearly was no imminent threat. And a CBS News poll found that most Americans disapprove of the war and think the administration has not clearly explained its goals. But disapproval in a poll does not stop a war. A Senate vote stopping it could have, and the Senate just refused to take that vote. The war is also now hitting the global technology infrastructure in ways nobody anticipated. Amazon Web Services, the largest cloud computing company in the world, confirmed that its data center in Bahrain was damaged by a nearby drone strike. 2 additional AWS data centers in the United Arab Emirates were directly struck by Iranian drones. All 3 facilities remain offline, according to the AWS Health Dashboard. Iran's IRGC said explicitly that it targeted the Amazon facilities because of the company's support for U.S. military and intelligence activities. This is a new dimension to the war that nobody modeled in their pre-conflict scenarios. Iranian drones attacking the cloud infrastructure that runs a significant portion of the global internet. Businesses around the world whose applications run on AWS in the Gulf region found their services going dark because of an Iranian drone attack. Qatar arrested 10 suspected IRGC spies operating inside the country. These were intelligence operatives who had been embedded in Qatar, a country that hosts the largest American air base in the Middle East. The question of how long they had been there and what information they collected about U.S. military operations is one that American intelligence is now urgently working through. Qatar Airways announced its flights remain suspended until Qatari airspace reopens. Emirates said its flights remain grounded. Etihad was grounded until Wednesday afternoon UAE time. More than 1 million passengers remain stranded. The Dubai and Abu Dhabi airports, which together handle more international traffic than almost any other hub on Earth, are effectively closed. Now let us talk about the succession question because it has taken a new and deeply symbolic turn. Cam's state funeral, which had been scheduled to begin on Wednesday evening in Tehran, was canceled. Iranian state media announced the postponement without giving a new date. 3 days of national mourning had been officially declared. Canceling the funeral of the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic, the man who ruled Iran for 35 years, is not a scheduling problem. It is a signal of how completely the regime's normal functioning has been disrupted. The funeral of Khamenei in 1989 was one of the largest gatherings in human history. Millions of people filled the streets of Tehran. The ceremony was broadcast around the world. It was the moment the Islamic Republic demonstrated its mass popular legitimacy after the founder's death. A proper funeral for Qam would have been that kind of moment. The regime cannot hold it. The bombing will not stop long enough for it to happen safely. Meanwhile, Qam's son Mojibak is now being named by multiple intelligence sources as one of the front runners for supreme leader. He is a mid-level cleric. He has never held public office, but he carries his father's name. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz issued a public warning that whoever is appointed as the next supreme leader will be an unequivocal target for elimination. Israel is not just bombing Iran, it is threatening to kill whoever Iran chooses as its next leader before that person can consolidate any authority. This is an attempt to make the position of supreme leader itself untenable. So where is this war going? Iran is running out of long-range missiles. Its navy is at the bottom of the sea. Its air force has been destroyed. Its supreme leader is dead. Its funeral is canceled. Its succession building in Qam has been bombed. Kurdish fighters are inside its borders. The CIA is arming those fighters. The Senate has cleared the legal path for the bombing to continue. The U.S. general says they are accelerating, not decelerating. On paper, this looks like an overwhelming American and Israeli victory. But there is a gap between destroying a country and replacing it with something stable. The regime is crumbling under this pressure, but 90 million people still live in Iran. Thousands of IRGC fighters still have their weapons. The ideology that built this regime did not disappear when the bombs fell. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy said it plainly. This is an open-ended operation that has not even started in earnest yet. The Trump administration went into this with the goal of regime change. They are achieving it militarily, but regime change is not just the end of a regime. It is also the beginning of whatever comes next. And right now, nobody in Washington or Jerusalem appears to have a clear answer for what that next thing is. The Kurdish fighters moving into western Iran are not a government in waiting. They are armed groups who want autonomy in a region that Iran has never willingly given up. If the regime collapses and Kurdish groups seize territory, Iran may not become a democracy. It may become a fractured state with multiple armed factions fighting over the ruins. China is watching. Russia is watching. The 1.45 families of the people killed in Iran are watching. The 6 American soldiers who were buried this week were watching until they could not anymore. This war is on day 6. The Senate says it can continue for as long as Trump wants. The general says it is accelerating. The CIA is arming new fighters, and Iran, which is running out of missiles but not out of will, is still firing. I will be here for day 7. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. This story is changing by the hour, and the next development could come at any